And
Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the First Chapter with DJONC, Jolanda, Olivia, and of course myself, Jolanda. And our special guest today is another one of our guys. He is a member of the Basement Crew. He is our brother and our very, very good friend, Power Born. Welcome, Tower.
Peace and thank you. Thank you for having me. I
one day
am
we'll have
great.
real clapping to put in there.
Oh, throwing that effect, yeah. But no, thank you for having me. Willfully, I have a story, something to share that helps others. But once again, very grateful for you having me on your show.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
We are
you.
so glad that you took the time to sit with us and to speak with us. So we're going to just jump right into it. I'm going to ask you a few questions. And it's kind of like a round robin type of thing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to talk about fatherhood because I know that you are a proud papa. And what does fatherhood mean to you on a soul level, like deep down? What does it mean to be a father to you?
So when we think about the essence of soul, for one, that's the mental. That's it's an immaterial. It's not physical. And I think about how I'm passing on my DNA, my mental DNA onto my children. And I've strived to learn to do that through example, having better emotional intelligence versus initially growing up with the visual of my dad and other fathers in my village of the drill sergeant. um, Learning to how to apply certain dynamics, certain mentalities at the right time has been the real, dare I say, magic trick to trying to figure out being a parent. But like I said, on the soul level, it's really about can I, because of where I'm at, I think some of the things I've done works. So can I implant that in my babies and my children, my fully almost both of them almost fully grown adults. And I see it, and also I'm understanding that it's still a work in progress because they're infinite beings just like I am. So they're constantly learning. So yeah, that's willfully that answers that question.
It does. It does. It does. So, like you said, your children are, almost, well, one's grown and she's almost there. She's not there yet. She's got some, you still got some, you got a little more time on that one. She's still in the
Right.
incubator for a little bit longer. So, how do you think your approach to fatherhood differs now compared to when you first became a father?
Yeah. Considering they're 5.5 years apart and different personalities, different genders, having to adjust for that because something I was used to say to my ex-wife, like, and we got it, like understood, like there's no manual for it. And every time you deal with something, it's gonna be a brand new experience. You're literally learning it in real time, in the moment, right with them, just like they're learning you, like, oh, okay, we shouldn't do that, or it's okay to do that. The same way I'm learning, like, okay, maybe that's not as big a deal as I think it is, as I first perceived it, or going off of my past child rearing with my mom, with my mother and father, thinking, oh, I need to growl like a bear. Whereas really now it's let go of those things that reared me as a child, and I understood that my village, my mom, my dad, grandparents, and all that did the best they could. My auntie, who was my auntie Sadie, peace be upon her, that was like my second mother. They did the best they could. However, I knew it was my co-parent and I realized it was better to teach them from a standpoint of let me explain why this is wrong and let me show you how you could approach it in a better way. And actually, let me hear why you think, why you disagree. Why did you choose to do that? Because what I'm constantly trying to do is develop that critical thinking skill that I see getting lost so much nowadays in our community. So the major difference is instead of just barking orders and all that stuff, but more or less trying to get an understanding because you could scream and yell and whoop and all of that, but that's a band-aid. That's not teaching them to be self-sufficient. Only thing that really actually is doing, from my experience, is planting fear in them. And I don't need them to be fearful. I need them to understand and just be knowledgeable.
I believe that yeah, I agree with you totally because we had a discussion before about certain things that traumatize us as children growing up, what our parents have taught us, and one of those things was, you know, seen and not heard. One of those things, do as I say, not as I do. And you know, what I mean, just just do what I tell you to do, and it just beating that understanding into you. And we always try to do better for our children or teach our children better than the way we were taught. So that it was necessary that we never just, there was no discussion about anything. If you can remember, I don't know, that was one of the things that I was brought up, but there was no discussion about anything. It was like you were told what was right and what was wrong. And if you didn't understand it, then, what the next thing was.
I'll tell you again.
Right. You want to go get told a second time. Right. Exactly.
Right.
So, what I mean, that was more of a communicate. We opened up more opportunities for our children to speak to us about things, to have a conversation about us, to be able to communicate what they thought and what their thought process is, opposed to what we were given. So I totally agree with that. That was great.
If I may throw in a little thing, a little story, as far as my mother, if my mother was on here, she would tell you like how I dealt with her conflict or her discipline as a child. She would say, she tells my children as I'll sit there, we were riding in the car, she say, so the way your father would do it, especially if he was convinced, if he felt he was right, he would let it go for a while, but he would come back around a few hours later. Cause I would explain the case. And I was like, she said, so are you telling me I'm a lie? I'm lying? I said, no, you're not lying. You're just mistaken. So even for 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, I learned a way with words to try to make it a little more palatable to still get my point across. And I think, yeah, that definitely it helps me because I see it in my children. So I'm like, okay, I definitely passed that on. So
Well, that's good. You gave them the ability to communicate better and not to be fearful
right,
of you. And you couldn't even ask for anything better for your children not to be. I didn't want my children to fear me at all. I don't know
right,
about
yeah.
Yolanda or
'Cause
Olivia,
then
but
they
I
they
didn't.
won't be able to communicate as adults.
Right,
And
exactly. I didn't want
right.
them to fear me. Um, how um how is your understanding of manhood influence how you raise your children?
Mm. That one, heavy. Ooh, that's a heavy one because we grow up with so many stereotypes. Um, Men, actually, even across all different ethnicities, all races, in the sense of this, and then you see it more talked about now. Back then, we just saw it being stoic and quiet and reserved. Don't show emotions. Don't show that something bothered you. I'll go back to my earlier point that learning, I think there is a place for that. However, when it's that ride home, or like a 45-minute commute we have from school, and she's telling me about stuff that she dealt with at school or this boy she's been chatting with, no matter how much I'll be like, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone for now.
It's like I don't want to hear it. I don't
Uh,
want to hear it.
right. And I try not to be that way. I try not to be, but because I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, Power, watch your facial expressions. Just listen. Um, being striving to be in tune and once again emotionally intelligent in the way I receive the information and the feedback. Because I think if we're trying to be so stoic and whatever, we might not give them. We we just once again we're muting ourselves. We still muting ourselves from childhood. Don't do as I'm doing. Do as I say. That type of. And I don't want to do that with them. I want them to know. I want her to know. You could come to me about anything. I'm going to give you real feedback from my experience, not this manicured refinements phase that I'm in now. Like, when people say, "Oh man, Power, you are like this," and relationship, I said, but I wasn't always like this. I wasn't, I was making a lot of mistakes, was an asshole, um, and inconsiderate. So, which that ties back into that patriarchal mindset of, oh no, I can make the decision. I don't have to involve you as my woman, as my wife. I'm gonna make a decision for the family. We're gonna move from Atlanta to Arizona because I want a promotion, or we're gonna move from Arizona back to Illinois because I want this promotion. And you'll see it on the ticker on ESPN after I sign the contract, and that's actually true.
Mm.
So now me and my more refined self understanding that communicating, like I tell my daughter or tell my son, communicate, communicate because proper communication avoids confusion. And that's like really, I would say, far as from my manhood thing, I'm not gonna be the time is when it's right for the situation. I'll be that elder gentleman that sits in the easy chair and doesn't say much. But then also I know there's going to be other times I need to be engaged. I need to definitely share my insight because I don't want to see as much as I would want to protect them from failing. I realize this, and I was just telling my daughter this the other day. I could prepare you for anything, but I can't protect you from everything.
I like
So,
that.
yeah,
I really like that.
peace. Thanks.
Well, this kind of leads into it. I think, well, you can tell me because that sounds like a challenge to me. What you just said sound like a little challenge. But what is the biggest challenges and rewards you have of being a father today?
The reward is when I see that they get it. The reward is when they come back to me and say, especially with my daughter, because just a little backstory. So I divorced in March 9th, 2019, separated like far separate homes, September 1st of 2018. And I'm a numbers person, so I remember. It's like people like say, man, you remember the exact date. But so I had my son with me one on one up until he went to U of I in 2021 because he didn't go the first year during the pandemic. Um, that and having that relationship and being very vulnerable with him helped a lot, I think, in him being able to be vulnerable with me. We have this relationship where I don't ever even think about him lying or whatever, because he's gonna tell me what it is, even if he know it's gonna piss me off. But I would never be able to say, oh, I don't know if you're telling me the truth or not. And that's rewarding because to me, that's like a regardless to whom or what, our word is bond with each other. And then now coming up to with my daughter, she she's been living with me 100% since for about a year and a half. January, January will be 2 straight years. Instilling that with her, um, that's it's had its challenges with that and understanding that for me to be your biggest cheerleader and advocator, we have to have like fluid, unquestionable integrity with each other, even when we fuck up, because that's gonna happen. I'm gonna make mistakes that I'm gonna have to apologize for. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make poor decisions. I might make a poor decision that I have to apologize for. So, um, the rewards is like, and when she comes back and says, "Oh, Father, I get why you say about keeping my room organized and how much better I feel, how much better my the psychological aspect, she's able to see it." And she's literally saying that. The challenge is recognizing and remembering for both of them it's their journey, and I cannot fast forward it. That's the tough part because I know it. And I'll say this, and pardon me, y'all gonna have to catch me because sometimes I be going. Uh, I say knowledge is like a warehouse. However, I've been working in this warehouse way longer than you have. So instead of you having to go up and down these aisles looking for this book on how the earth was made, you can or how to navigate boys. You could just ask me, and I'm gonna tell you second row, top shelf, section A1. Use me. You don't have to fight this by yourself. I'm still gonna do things and do exercises to make you think for yourself, but I'm here. I've already been in the warehouse. We have access to the same knowledge, but I've been in the warehouse longer, so utilize me. And it's okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but you work in a different warehouse.
As a man,
Nope. Just and I get what you're trying to say, use me because I've been there, done that. But as a parent, sometimes we have to remember it's their life. Even though you've been there, done that, they need to have the experience themselves.
Yeah,
They
that's what
need
I was
to
gonna say.
make the mistakes. They need to have their own journey. And it's very comforting to hear a father say that because usually it's a mother saying that because we don't understand how to let go of our children and allow them to make their own mistakes and take their own journey. So,
indeed, that goes back to my I cannot protect you from everything.
mhm,
Right,
I can
right.
give you the tools,
Hmm.
and really, I think for any parent, that is probably the biggest challenge. No matter how flawless your child could be or rough your child could be, knowing like remembering like you had to walk this path to get to know what you know. So don't try to manicure everything for them. And I don't. It's a thing of like last night, real simple example. She got a new 360-degree shoe tower.
mm,
And she said, and like I got a little nice lightweight drawer set. Well, I'm growing up over here to put in my room, right? Instead of having them little plastic drawers, but it's something that, it moves easily. And she was like, and it's her time of the month and all that stuff. So she's not feeling the greatest. But she's like, Father, can you come help me? I said, girl, you can do that. That's simple. She said, it's heavy. I said, no, when you take the pieces out, it's going to become lighter. It's just because it's all packed into one big box. 2 hours later, bam, he did it. She got a nice up. She's like, hey, come look. And those things and remembering to your point, Jolanda, I remind myself, and it's kind of pretty much settled in. They have to be self-sufficient. So for them to be self-sufficient, you got to let them have those experiences and also push them
mhm.
to, no, 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 no. I don't have to, because I've seen people with their children, similar age or same age, child can't cut their own pizza.
Mm.
So, mm,
Wow.
Sometimes, sometimes experience is the best teacher. You can be there uh with the alcohol and the band-aids and the curacone, methylate, and everything else to go ahead and soothe those boo-boos, but you're gonna have to let that boo-boo happen. You know, they gotta learn. So That's I mean that's all. Yeah, that is the most challenging part of being a parent, that we do have to let them make their mistakes. Just I mean, any good parent will be there for
Right. Yeah.
them.
I don't think we in a different warehouse though. I will debate that part. What?
Different
Because think about it.
warehouse. Go ahead.
Knowledge is infinite. I mean, I get the reason you say that. I guess, and then it's more of a perspective thing.
Okay.
Knowledge is infinite. Like we're all on the same planet, right? We'll say the Earth is this warehouse, or
Hmm.
actually, what the universe is. We all have access to it, just from different ways. It's the same. And to your point, you need to figure out a way to get to that warehouse the same way I did,
Yes,
right? So we're saying a
we're
similar
saying
thing.
the same thing.
But
Yes,
see, now you're
but
getting this version of power. Now I'm like, hey, no, actually. But even in that, I learned to just say, well, let me offer a different perspective. Not like my way is the end all to be all too.
No,
That's yeah, just
it's
thankfully
hard.
yeah,
human
that's right.
development.
um, how do you teach your children about identity and culture and legacy? I know because we see that you have a very unique and open way approach to fatherhood. So, how do you teach that identity and culture and legacy to your children?
Number one, mirroring mirroring our culture, our way of life, your daily, which is which should be seen through your daily practices. You know, the foods you eat, how you talk, music, art, or whatever your particular family is into. Because I think you got the macrocosm of the culture or so-called culture outside this house, but then the microcosm of the culture inside the house. Uh, excuse me. How how I keep a home, which is very important to me. Um, like normally, any day, anytime, if you all were just to pop up outside and say, "Hey, let's do it in person," okay, I'm ready. And that's important. But I wanted to pass that on to them. Like that's a part of the born culture, our family, because even their mother is like that. And it's things I learned from her during our time together about not cluttering, keeping spaces open. And then what I realized with that, um, that helps them going back to the early thing about how that affects the psychology. So then willfully they pass that on to their children if they decide to have any. Uh, Identity, which actually pardon me, I should have touched on this first. My name, which is so much goes into that. Now I'm happy to say it's a family name, Power Born. But Justice Born was the firstborn, and then Rain, in which she she joked, she said, "No, I'm the first lady of the Born family because she's the first one with the last name Born amongst us legally." And both understanding why their last name wasn't Rudd, why their last name wasn't Kroon, um, and the importance of that and the legacy that goes from that. Because now, and once again, going back to if they choose to have children, this is something that will be passed on and a history right there that we created in this current time. Um, imagery, imagery is important here. Um, I have quite a bit of art around the house of people that look like us, um, man and woman. I'm very particular about duality. So, for example, I have a picture of Malcolm, and then I have a picture of a woman with a beautiful afro right next to him. Above it, I have a mother carrying a baby, and then the other one, because it's four pictures in a set that I put together, but it's usually man woman symbology around here. Just because I'm very particular about balance, because I actually going back, I didn't understand the importance of coming and talking to you all and getting your input, getting your perspective from from a woman's perspective, from that feminine perspective, and being able to translate that in my mind to have a better understanding versus for many years, months, and days of only talking to men.
Mm.
And sometimes, just to be fully transparent, men who probably hadn't experienced what I experienced, as
Mm.
far as in relationships and with fatherhood. Um, so yeah, the identity thing, the culture, the legacy is really starting with them and understanding them knowing that our culture is about everything starting in the mind. That going back to challenges. When my daughter leaves out of here, I know she gets influenced so much about at the school she attends, which is one of the more um, popular, highly recognized schools in Chicago, and affluent in the sense, the students there with the labels and the hair and all of that, and constant reminding her, remember how you were when you were younger. You didn't care. You didn't care so much about that. And that's the beauty of your own uniqueness. You had a unique name, even though she got tired of people mispronouncing sapiens. So that's why she went. I think that kind of really drove her to go by Rain
Mm.
as well. But once again, you were given names with intention, not just because it's your grandmother's name, middle name, or whatever. And no disrespect to anybody who did that. Um, but yeah, that's one of the ways in part. I started thinking about going back to the challenges because she had this experience the other day where she went to the beach with her friends and she was wearing a long dress down to her ankles. But my daughter, she's kind of athletically, but very feminine build, got some curves for a 15-year-old. Um, and she said her and a friend, she was so disgusted as she was walking from her school over to the lake, how many grown men
Mm.
were saying things to them. And she didn't even realize it for like, I guess, a good few minutes until like it just was blatantly obvious. And, she reached out to her mother and then she told me about it. And, and there asking her, so how did you feel in the moment? And then I tied it back to her and I said, you know how you would deflect or you would think I was just being this crude, strict parent when I say, what's your ideal? What is your determined ideal by wearing that particular outfit? What are you looking? What type of response are you looking for? And I said, this is an example of why I asked that question, because I really want you to think about it, not just say because I want to wear it and I should be able to wear it. You should. However, I realize that I'm a realist, a hardcore realist. I'm in a minority of mature men who will not look at somebody who even remotely looks like they could be my daughter. Yeah. Probably went off on a tangent there.
I think that's
No,
something. Did we discuss that before about how we dress and how we feel? And I
no,
don't
we
know.
didn't. But
No,
that's a
we
good
haven't.
one.
That's a good one
No,
though. Yeah, but
very good
I
one.
think we said something about it. I just can't remember what. But yeah, that was pretty. That was good. That was good.
Well, with your identity and now being power born, that rolls into our next part of your faith. And I know your faith is big for you and the way you live your life. So, my question to you is, can you share your journey into the nation of gods and earths and how it shaped your worldview?
Um,
How did you
yeah,
start?
if I
Go
may
ahead.
ask a question,
Hmm.
how do you define faith? Or are you going by the dictionary?
Faith is what you believe, what you for me, is what you believe, how you guide your life.
Okay. Okay. I can see how that falls under there. I would tell you, let me answer the question first, then I'll go into that.
Okay.
So going back, it seemed like it was eventually going to come out. And so one of my brothers was telling me about the science of eventuality. Like it might take 200 years, it might take 600 years, but a certain type of person will, the times will produce. We could look at the Martins, the Malcolms, or Noble Drew Ali, Elijah, Master Farrar, all that, Allah the Father. Um, when I was in fourth grade, my mother, I was an altar boy at Sacred Heart Grammar School. And I remember one Sunday waking up and I was contemplating, like, why do I go to this church, to this building, to pray to something I don't see? Statues all throughout the church and the monastery, all that do not reflect anything I look like. It wasn't even a tan. They were pale statues. Um, and I studied. I actually read the Bible. I took enjoyment. My mother had a children's Bible for us, so it had pictures. My favorite story being Samson and Delilah, because he was kind of like a superhero to me, as as a child, with the strength, and his weakness was if you cut his hair, and also women. No, no shock. But when you think about it, the character that Delilah played, um, I asked my mother that morning, Ma, why am I going to pray to something I don't see? These statues don't look like us. Da-da-da. I'm laying on the end of my bed, looking out my bedroom as she goes to the kitchen to get a little something together for breakfast for me before she drops me off at the church for work, actually. It's like work and going to church. And she said, Boy, if you don't get your butt up out that bed and just put your clothes on. And I joke with her and I tell her, I said, in a way, you planted the seed, your response planted a seed of like, I need to know. She couldn't answer it. And years speeding this up, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Then eighth grade, I did not want to have anything to do with pork. Once again, seeds being planted. The pork thing didn't go away until 98, but from 89 to 98, but eventually I got it. Pork and beef. And speeding it up to Chicago State, I meet this brother named Rule Almighty in psychology class of all places. And when he told me, I looked and I had some reference just prior to meeting him about the 5%, but it wasn't technically people who were 5%, but they portrayed themselves as such, which is a whole nother story. Um, but he talked to me about this degree we have called the question says, what makes rain, hailstorm, earthquakes? He didn't quote the whole like answer to it because it's like darn near a quarter of a page. But he explained to me, like he gave me the science behind so-called rain dancing. And he taught me about the water cycle. And that sold me. I said, wow. He just gave me a practical example of, well, say 10,000 people chanting, vapors coming out of their mouth, going up to the sky, and eventually they become so heavy in the current that they're in, and then they distill back to the earth in the form of drops of water, drops of ice, or snow. And I didn't leave his side. We're still tight to this day. So, and then I met his educator, and we, in our culture, people who are our teachers, we call them educators, because looking at the word educate means to bring out. So, I would go into your question, how it formed my worldview was that everything I had been looking for was inside of me. And that, like, his examples and us walking together for years and experiencing certain things together, traveling, even like our first time I go to New York back in 2000, or actually, was it
Mm.
2000, 2001? Before it was before the towers fell. And just those experiences and learning the number one thing that I think anybody who comes on this planet needs to figure out, as far as we commonly say, knowledge of self, is that once again, everything you're looking for, and if you look at any ancient text that's dealing with indigenous people, it usually circles back around to the divine is inside of you. And realizing that, and I think about
Mm.
at the time I was going through working out and losing weight, and I stopped and I was, which now I know they call it sun gazing, and I looked at the sun like, oh, I'm like the sun because I'm like the center of my universe, or in this center of the solar system. And the same way the sun shines every day, I have to. I have to be consistent. I somehow in my head back then, I conjured up like I caused all of the above for myself. And that changed how I accepted hard truths, how I accepted being accountable. Because my mom, like even with my divorce, my mom would say, why do you assume so much of the fault for things? And I said, that's my way of life. I call it, even if it's, albeit if it's good or bad, or which is perception in itself, it's on me. I caused all of it. I cannot sit there and point the finger and say, well, she didn't do this and she didn't do that, because then I would never figure out the answer because I'm constantly deflecting, which is what we see way too much nowadays. So there you go.
So with you understanding knowledge of self and everything starts with you, how does that, and I know you've already talked about how you raise your children and things like that, but how does that influence your well, parenting again, if there's anything other you want to say, but your career and relationships outside of your children?
Striving, that's an excellent question, excellent follow-up. Striving to be as always civilized, always righteous in how I in my dealings with people. To have, as we say in in my culture, being dealing with equality. And equality doesn't mean necessarily identical, but it's some level of reciprocation. And career-wise, once again, I go back to having a determined ideal. I want something, but I need to strategically, and in my culture, we use the principles of supreme mathematics, which is dealing with is terms that are associated with the numbers 1 through 9. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, culture, freedom, power, refinement. Power is 5, 6 is equality, 7 is Allah, God, or just God as I originally
Mm.
received it. 8 is build or destroy. 9 is born. And realizing everything I need to deal with, I just take it through that process. It's a mental exercise to figure out what I need to hold on to, what I need to get rid of. And the beauty and the challenge of it, the reward and challenge of it is being successful with it. But then when I fail at something, I realize I didn't follow the process. I didn't take that time to really research and analyze something. And I'll say, oh, I miscalculated. Um, Career and relationship wise, to be fully transparent, it had been so tough living this out in the career, in the relationship. Like now with my children's mother, I had the possibility of doing it, but I was immature. She was down with it, changed her name and all of that. But I didn't realize what I had. I didn't realize this ain't a dime a dozen situation. And I've had the rest of my years to see that, to learn that like you're not just going to come across women who not only, okay, people say open to it or like, oh yeah, tell me about it, but they actually want to because at that time, I remember when meeting her and we were going to the museum for our first date. And she says, yeah, and I'm coming, I got knowledge and I had it, we met in April of 99. So I had it for 7 or 8 months. So I'm still really gung ho about it and everything. And she says, yeah, I'm looking to have a better relationship with God. So I chuckle to myself like, well, hey, you sitting in the car with him, so let's just cut that. You ain't got to walk too much further. However, the thing that gets missed in that, yes, these brothers took the time to teach me about that, but I'm gonna go back to Jolanda's point about the experience that you have to have will be, and I've told people this, I've had this 26 plus years. And I would swear I probably figured it out to a good level, not the highest level of understanding, but to a good level of understanding within the last 10. So that means for the first 16, I was running around shooting off, just playing with high explosives, as we say, and blowing up shit because I didn't realize the tools I had. Have power in my name psychologically means the capacity to influence. And some people even tie my astrological sign into it, like, oh, Scorpios have this, I don't know, whatever. Don't look at them in the eyes too long. Whatever, but this ability to facilitate, to influence people. And because I didn't handle my gifts, my set abilities properly and in a righteous fashion, that's that led to the degradation of my marriage. Because then, even as I changed, which she acknowledged, she still kind of held on to the point that culturally, it was your culture that caused this.
Mm.
When really it was just I was a weak-minded person um, who still realized I was the master of my kingdom, the master of my home, but I was a weak clown with amazing tools. I was, it's something I think about. It's a book, this book I always recommend called As a Man Thinketh. And he says, even a man is still the master of himself, even in a weakened state. He's just a foolish master with, with that ability of knowing that he still is the master, but he's a foolish one. And I was definitely foolish. And, now I'm much better for it. And thankfully, she's recovered from it. Um, and it affected going even with the parenting. My daughter not being as there's been some level of resistance in a way to even interacting with each other based at a cultural level in that sense because in her head and talking with her mother, I mean it's natural stuff people and the opinions, this is what caused our house
Uh-oh.
to be separated. So I'm not rock. She still lives a life based on it because you could tell her as soon as you hear her speak. Um, okay, well, hopefully my internet doesn't mess up. I got good internet. Am I clear? Okay.
You
You're
good. You
back.
You're
good.
good.
Yeah, thank you. So that and career wise, me changing my name legally was like a 900-pound gorilla getting off my back. And this thing of being just free and being, as they say, authentically me.
Yes.
Because some people at my job, they knew, they follow me on social media from many jobs ago, and they know. But like where now I had directors announcing, oh, congratulations to Robert. He's changed his name. Now he's Robert. What's your middle name? Power Born. And to sit there and I'm waiting, like, okay, I know it's gonna be some questions with this. However, due to my maturity with it, I'm able to answer those questions. Now in a relationship, I'm able to show the woman that this is not a male dominated culture where I wasn't before. Because when you read the curriculum that goes with us, you see man, 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 earth, man, God, earth. Before I didn't qualify myself to do that, but now I am. Then yeah, but it's still there's still difficulties because then realizing that for me to be who I am, I cannot entertain people who are not gonna be on that same frequency. And that's the tough thing because sometimes with this mindset of I'm trying to help save the world, even though I'm teaching people to save themselves, I can't save them directly. I have to be careful, be mindful, don't try to change people either. Even the good civilized people, they have their ways. They were raised up the way they were. They have their understanding, and I have to respect that and gracefully step away. Hopefully that answers the question, because yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah, that went into some things when you were talking about God and earth and things like that. That goes into one of the things that I know I have heard a lot of people have misconceptions about. What are some common misconceptions people have about being a five percenter?
Number one, we're Muslims. We're not. We're not
Okay.
an offshoot. I just had this conversation with this sister, which it was an interesting conversation. I'll just say that. But we're not Muslims. We're not an offshoot of the Nation of Islam. A little, and I'll be quick. Allah, when he was in the Nation of Islam, he came out of the Nation of Islam. He brought some material out. However, how he taught them brothers back in the 60s and how it has survived and thrived from then to now is not how they do in the Nation of Islam. Um, it's Are there some things you could say might be similar? You could, but also that could just also be because that person who went from the nation, they might have grew up in a family that was Muslim, but then
Mhm.
they saw the 5% became 5%. So human nature is, oh, I'm gonna bring with me what's comfortable. And that's the tough part because you'll see people think like, oh, the 5%, that's another religion. Because they still use the term God, they say Lord, Almighty, and supreme being and all that. However, we're not talking about the European, Eurocentric, Christian based, Judeo Christian point of view of God. We're talking about a person that is really living and breathing on this planet, regards to God or devil. It's not going to be something that you don't see, other than you not recognizing that you might have a devilish mentality in your mind. But that's where those seeds, either you're choosing to be godly as a woman or be devilish or be devil or God as a man. It's a choice, but it's something that's internal. It's not anything external. Um, that we are a gang, that we are drug dealers and criminals. Yeah, that, especially when you go back to the 80s. And then, yes, a lot of brothers did get knowledge. Many, not all, a majority, but many brothers did get knowledge inside of the prison walls, the
Mhm.
county jails. and they came out and became great men and women. Because there's always a chance, as we say, for a mental death versus a physical death. Um, hmm. Oh, this one, I'll wrap it here. Now, actually, I'll put this disclaimer for anybody ever watches the snippet, and as you know, this willfully gets shared a million times, right? We are not about groupthink or group speak, meaning my disclaimer is I'm power born a lot as myself. Yes, I'm somebody who lives the culture of the 5%, you could say as a representative in the city of Chicago or C Medina, as we call it. Um, but I don't speak for all of the 5%. Not every 5% thinks the way I do. However, we both work off the same platform, the same curriculum, but how we both, myself to the next person, manifest that could be totally different, different perspectives. And that's the beauty of it. We're not, even like the lessons that I've talked about already, they're not identical across the board, across this country, across this world, because there's 5%ers all across the planet. There's 5%ers of all shades. That's another thing, thinking that we're pro-black and anti-white because it said, oh, the Caucasian man is devil, the colored man or Caucasian man is the devil. But you would have to talk to a 5%er to get a better understanding of what that means. And as one of my brothers once said to me, why does devil always have to mean something bad? And that's probably a deeper conversation. Um, but versus it being a depiction of a characteristic. But the reason why most people, when they hear devil, they think of a Judeo-Christian point of view, from a Judeo-Christian point of view, versus recessive. We're a dominant, we talk about scientifically, we're a dominant gene as melanated people, and then you have a recessive gene. Dominant would be synonymous with strong, recessive would be synonymous with weak. God is synonymous with strong, the devil is synonymous with being weak. And historically speaking, many times wicked. Because we look at, and this is a thing of accepting those hard truths, not bashing people. Because once again, for the people in the back, there are white 5%ers, and I know them, man and woman. So they even understand that there's white people in the Nation of Islam, as I found, or well, they're what's the term? They have an affinity. They might not necessarily be a part of, but they have an affinity for the Nation of Islam. Um, but yeah, we're not separatists. We are not about, we want to just work in the community as I see it, work, be a part of the community and just uplifting the community. We're not misogynist, even though once again, some brothers have portrayed it that way. Oh, I don't need to teach her. She don't need to know lessons. No, I want my woman, my queen, my earth to know what I know. But once again, we're not, I guess as they say, monolithic because somebody else gonna say, no, they don't do that. They have that right to, even though I think that's very limiting. And yeah, but that's a reality.
Yeah,
Eye opening right there. If I can't say anything else, that is very eye opening.
yeah, that is. In
Oh,
college,
hit me with
uh,
them. Hit me with them.
we had to learn about the different religions, and I actually dated someone that was Muslim, and then ended up becoming a 5%er, and then left and became a Muslim again, and I wasn't understanding the correlation. So thank you for explaining that you're not an offshoot, and you could have some of those ideas and still move through your life. And we talked about before how we took the lessons of Christianity and some of those things before versus African spirituality and things like that. So I'm glad you can take bits and pieces and still live your life. as the way you want to.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that because that sparks another thought. A misconception like we only study 120. Our way of life is based on supreme mathematics. Those principles I shared earlier. And I always tell people like 120 is like a battery of psychological tests. It's ways our curriculum will help you figure out people's characteristics and their ways and actions. But I study Buddhism. I study Judaism, Islam, the religion of Islam, um, read the Kabbalah, the Kabbalion, um, talked to Sikhs or Sikhs. I always struggle with that pronunciation when I lived out on the West Coast. Um, but we study everything because what we come to find out is as original people, we migrated all over the planet.
Mhm.
And in turn, that developed different cultures that probably, adapted to the regions they were in, and it was a need for it. Or yes, you had colonizers who came in and grafted things. So then you have stuff spring from that. But as my mother would say, she don't have religious discussions with me because I know the Bible better than her,
Mm. All right.
which which ties into the thing that led me to this point. Because I told her, I said, if he was able to teach me that, maybe, I don't know, I might still be sitting in somebody's pew. I say jokingly, but yeah. But thank you. I'm
Well,
glad you
that
brought
leads,
that up.
I'm glad you started to talk about the science of mathematics because uh, I'm definitely into numerology. That's my thing. And some of the things that I post, I know you respond to because some of it does correlate with the supreme mathematics of the day. So, how do you explain the science of supreme mathematics or the supreme alphabet to someone who is not familiar with the culture?
Okay. And pardon, there was a little freeze up, but you wanted me to explain about the basis
So,
behind supreme
how do you
mathematics?
explain the
Somebody who
science
doesn't
of
know.
supreme mathematics or supreme alphabet to someone who's not um, familiar with the culture?
So supreme mathematics, once again, is principles that help us better understand ourselves and the universe
Mhm.
in how we interact with the universe. Supreme alphabet is like, once again, they're like characteristics. And like when we talk about justice, justice being a penalty or reward depending on your ways and actions after you receive the knowledge on a particular situation. Either if you act correctly, you're going to get rewarded while by things working out as planned. But if you don't, you're going to get frozen at 32 degrees or below, which is going to be a penalty. And I think about love, hell, or right, and dealing with both of them correlate with each other, even though once again, here's an example of where there's some disagreement, even amongst in our culture, of the numbers correlating with letters, even though everything is based on numbers. Everything around us, if we agree with it or not, is based on numbers. So one is knowledge, and saying that's the foundation, the basic foundation of all things in existence. When you look at the letter A for Allah in the supreme alphabet, what is the origin of all things in existence? God,
Oh.
Allah. And as we see it, everything has their origin within the original man. So, and which goes back to man meaning mind in ancient Sanskrit, as is written. Um, but I would, yeah, basically say supreme mathematics is the way to figure out things and strategically approach things to be able to, once again, hold on or build what you need to keep and destroy what you need to take away. Supreme mathematics kind of, to me, taught me that good or bad, is really a thing of perspective.
Mhm.
It's not. really it's only good or bad based on how you're once again how you're perceiving it, how you feel about it. But when you think about it, you just need to adjust your perspective. It's kind of like figuring out how to get something out. It keeps you
Hmm.
like, dang, why is it tugging? But you stop, you adjust it. Mathematics, looking at stuff from a 360-degree angle, looking, taking your time and looking around, and you're like, let me do the knowledge to this. Look, listen, observe, and respect. Oh, that's blocking that. Now you're able to take it out. The alphabet, its characteristics is also our language. You know, we every letter has its own characteristic. Go with it. Allah, be a born, see, divine, or some people have divine or destroy. E for equality or earth. Like that, we talk about the character. It describes the characteristics of the woman, of the original woman, and she obviously has the ability to physically bring forth life, but in turn, she's also that child. She rears the child properly based on what she builds with her God on, and willfully. Once again, that's why that she needs to know what he knows, and he needs to know what she knows. Because then this is once again how she shows her high math, how her highest level of equality by rearing the children properly, by taking care of the home, being the doctor of the house, being that righteous nurse who's not, she's not teaching your babies about, she's teaching them the science behind the bunny and Cupid and Christmas and I say the Easter bunny and all that
Hmm.
and Thanksgiving. Why? Because she studies it for herself as well, and working in conjunction. But yeah, those the mathematics is our principles, the alphabet is our language that we speak. Um, yeah, yeah. It's wild. It's like I think about like, oh, I could just. It's so many ways. It's so many ways to describe it. But of course, as we say in our culture, we strive to speak into people, say they're not above it.
Hmm.
So, and also one of the biggest things I will definitely tell people, a misconception. You cannot get this way of life on the internet. It is
Thank you.
tying back to our ancestral indigenous practices. It
Hmm.
has to be from mouth to ear.
Mhm.
You cannot just click and say, oh, yeah, they go to lessons. Oh, they go to alphabet and math. Let me just memorize this and I'm gonna be just like them. No, because it's going to be little nuances that get missed just because you're not talking to somebody who truly lives it out.
And I'd like that because I think with all spirituality, a lot of days now in this society, everyone's so point and click. They want to learn it on Google. They want to learn it everywhere fast in our microwave society versus, like you said, taking the time and learning it for themselves. We had this discussion. Jolanda definitely will tell you her years of learning of what she believes and she practices. Carmen, same thing for me. And a lot of people believe, oh, well, you just go on TikTok and learn a spell, or you go on TikTok and you find some medicine, and you on Monday you wear white, and on Sunday you wear yellow, and you keep making it happen. So I'm glad you said that because in today's society, it is so microwave, and that's not what
You
spirituality
were
is.
you were literally in my head because that's literally the word I was thinking. Microwave education.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, definitely. So
Thank.
if I may ask, I'm gonna put Yolanda
Uh-huh.
on the spot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, oh, the eyebrow raise.
So
What was your impression? Because Jolanda had uh, and I was grateful she chose to come amongst us in the digital cipher, as we call it. What were some takeaways for you? Because we
my
hadn't talked.
takeaway is that I'm gonna come on the 17th as well, so that I can
Okay.
have more to understand. Initially, okay, I'll start with this.
Don't
One of
sugarcoat
I'm
it.
not. I'm not. That's why I'm gonna start good first. So, do you guys call yourselves brothers amongst yourselves?
Hmm.
Can I call him a brother?
Yeah.
Okay. So one
Yeah.
of the brothers said that just because you have the knowledge, it doesn't change your personality. It doesn't change who you are at your core. So if you're an asshole, you're an asshole with knowledge. If you're a misogynist, you're a misogynist with knowledge. I love that. I needed to hear that because listening to even the earths, the ladies speak,
Mhm.
it really sounds very misogynistic. So I had to hear, okay, you don't know a lot. I got 2.5 hours of information, and that's not enough to make a decision about a whole belief set. So that was good that he acknowledged that. Um, I loved it was a Earth. She said she had only gotten knowledge. She was in like 6 months or maybe 7 months. She hadn't even been a year yet. But just the way she spoke, her passion about the knowledge she's receiving, I just, she was inspiring. And I like the fact that she touched on the fact that some of the gods, some of the men would look down upon her because she does not have a male person in her life and that she didn't understand that. And the guy that I was speaking of before, he wasn't on the call anymore, but you did address that and saying that, yeah, some people have that belief, but that's not a core belief of a 5%er. You know, you don't have to have a God in order to have knowledge and to be of importance. Um,
Right.
I did notice though that I'm not going to say her name, but you have one Earth, and she had been in the belief for years. She says she had started at 12, so
Right.
she
Yeah.
had a lot of knowledge. So as an
Mhm.
outsider, she was very militant and tough, tough, tough. And I was like, mm-mm, I couldn't learn from her because she would start and I would run. I would run for the hills. Like she's scary. And that's probably what I would need because she has so much knowledge. And I was like, girl, no, If that's what it's about, I'm not doing this because you yelled at people. I was like, girl. And it's just something about her continence. That's a fighter. I'm not a fighter girl.
Can I just
So,
jump right in real quick? And
yeah,
I just for our viewers' sake, can you just tell them what you're speaking of? I know what it is, but if you can just tell them what you were just talking about, so they know, so our viewers know.
who is you?
You were just speaking
Power.
of, yeah, power. Can you tell her you were asking her opinion about
Yeah, and my apologies. So I host a class every other Tuesday evening called the Soil class. Soil stands for the science of everything in life, which is what Supreme Mathematics is. And we talk about various topics. I try to always have high engagement. So, and Jolanda happened to, she reached out to join us last week.
So it was interesting. I will listen again. Is it my belief set? No, but you guys have a lot of common beliefs that I share. So it's really fun to listen and learn that there are so many different paths to the same destination, and we all have very similar belief sets. It's just how you choose to live.
Right.
And so that like you even touched on the aspect of good and evil. And I'm going to wrap it because we still have some questions. So, um, the prospect of good and evil. I don't believe in good and evil. I believe everything has a purpose. It's just how you see it, how it's supposed to happen. Everything is duality. You have to have good to have evil. You have to have,
dark and
high
light,
and low.
dark and
Carmen
light?
said dark and light. One can't exist without the other. So little things like that I liked. That I am God. That I believe that. Whereas, and I had a question about that. We'll ask it later because that's going to be a whole rant, and that will be a long discussion about whether and why, if she can't, why can't an earth be a god? I don't get that. I believe I'm a god as well. So we'll get to that another time. But yes, it was nice. It was informative. I enjoyed it, and I felt very welcome.
She did because she did speak about it very well. She enjoyed herself for sure.
Thank you,
because she
because that
shared it
was
with
a
us.
rough night for me, which, side note, I did go get Xfinity
Good.
and kick T-Mobile's fake internet to the curb.
Yeah,
Yes,
you better.
let's make sure we post that. Uh, I gotta call them today. So yeah. So and the sisters carried it.
They
Sisters
did
and the brothers, even in my
in his
intermittent
absence.
absence. So to answer your questions or your state kind of reply to your statements, and that sister has been working on that so much. If you talk to her one on one, she really, because yes, she learned this from men
You can
in
tell.
between Queens and Brooklyn. And yes, but her really getting into more of a feminine space has really been her determined ideal. Like now, if you had talked to her, she talks about remembering that part of being a 5% is being courteous,
Hmm.
being civilized, being highly respectful to people, no matter their backgrounds. Um, and it's beautiful to see because I've been building with her for 6 or 7 years, and just to see her. And it's funny, I jokingly call her my big sister because she's had it longer than me. And we, in our culture, we look at that. We don't go by physical age. We go by your mental age and how long you've had this, and also how you actually express it. Because it's one thing to go around quoting, just saying fly stuff, but another thing of, okay, what's his home like? What is her home? How does she cook? Does she check and reading labels and learning things about medicine and science? Once again, going back to my ex-wife, she did that stuff, and that even though I went plant-based first out of the four of us, but her supporting it, and also because even before we had children, we were dabbling in alternative, different milk and all that stuff, plant-based milk and all that. That helped set the basis for why I can sit here and say, "Oh, I've been meatless for over 13 years," and then people be like, "What? You that size?" No, but but the actual fact of so that part, and like I said earlier, I was immature with this. Now, I don't think I'm an asshole at my core. I think also I had to understand to to acknowledge people's confidence. It doesn't necessarily mean cockiness,
Hmm.
but also sometimes though, when you're around people who are used to having their head low, they're gonna feel some type of way with a person who has their chest out and head up and shoulders back, damn near at all times. So you as ladies, as women, you make sure how you prepare yourself before you go out to the day. That woman, and no necessarily shade at them, but that woman who runs out the house in a bonnet might look at y'all and say, "Oh, y'all bougie, you think you all that?" Da, 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 da. No, it's a certain standard I hold myself to. But to you, you interpret that as cocky, arrogant, bougie, this and the third. Me being particular about the words I use. Once again, it could be, "Oh, you think you're a know-it-all," or you think, no, I study and read a lot. So
Hmm.
this is what you see. So um thank you for joining. Thank you for that
Hmm.
feedback. I always try to be as best a moderator and host as possible. And definitely willfully, I'm working on subjects, and actually I plan to post about uh looking for things that people want to discuss. So if you have any subjects, any questions you would like us to discuss, please email me or DM me.
I definitely will. I know where you live now, so I can do that. Um,
Yes.
and
Way out here.
I would suggest to anyone out there to learn about other ideals and other belief sets so that you can move forward with knowledge and not ignorance. Because some of the things that Olivia had prompted you to speak on with the being a gang and all, I've never even heard that. So
Yeah, I have.
We
that
were labeled
people,
security threat gang, STG for short, in the prison system until brothers. um, won certain legal cases
Wow.
to actually
Like,
to even get our material for people to be able to even read the lessons or
okay.
things like that. Yeah.
See, that's me moving in ignorance. Had no idea, you know.
Too.
And if someone would have told that to me, if I wasn't wise enough to have my own mind and think to myself, I would, oh, I can't even be friends with him anymore. He's in the gang, he sells drugs, you know.
Right.
Anywho, we'll move on. You have been very thorough. So I'm going to look through my question list because you've answered several of them. So I'm going to focus on marriage, divorce, and dating. The marriage and divorce, you pretty much answered. You were really thorough with the lessons that you learned. That was the question we had. What lessons did you learn? You talked about taking responsibility for your parts in the building as well as the demise of your marriage. That was lovely. And as a woman and as a wife, it really feels good that you acknowledge the goodness of your ex-wife and how she did work hard to accept your belief system and help keep the family strong. That feels really great. A lot of people don't do that.
Yes, very good.
But I do have a dating question now. So, how do you approach dating now with all the wisdom, growth, and spiritual understanding you've gained?
Disclaimer, I am not trying to disrespect anybody from my past. All right, then get that out the way.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. Being fully transparent, I have stumbled. For what I know, I have stumbled. And what happens, and I'm always, and this is the thing about me, like I'm very, once again, very transparent in the sense of sometimes the emotion of companionship overrules the logic of compatibility.
Mhm.
I like the way you said that. Yeah.
Um, I mean, being at times getting emotionally sad because I'm thinking there won't be that one for me.
Mhm.
Because of my way of life, I'm not about to forget about something I've been living for 20 something years. Either, immature to being mature with it. Because now that I'm mature with it, now it's like, oh, like, hey, I can really share this in totality and really live this out. But finding somebody or attracting somebody, because we don't necessarily go to find an earth or a queen. We make ourselves better to attract that.
Mhm.
And um, the last three women I've dated um, were good women in their own right. And even one of them, the one that I was dating back during the pandemic, and when I was sharing this with her, and she would actually even ask, like, well, why do you use knowledge as a verb and stuff like that while we're out walking and all that? Because that's pretty much all you could do back during the pandemic. Um, she recently came back and like in the past year or so and just messaged and she said, peace, God. And she said, if you should understand why I'm saying that now. Like you should get it. Like I get it. I get what you were saying. I thought you were crazy as hell in the moment. But she went and listened to a lecture with 19 keys. I don't know if y'all familiar with that,
Mhm.
brother.
Mhm.
100%.
And and it was here, yeah, it was here in Chicago, whatever. But she said it clicked. And I made a post about it. Ego, not having an ego or managing your ego is being able to be comfortable with planting a seed that you might not ever see the fruit of.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people want to be able to claim and say, oh, I did this, I taught her this, and da, 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 I changed, but I've become comfortable with, I might say, like some boys I was talking to at Corliss High School a few weeks ago, and I said a little something to them about education and not just book education. Well, not just in school education. And even under my breath saying, man, y'all are gods. Knowing that possibly not now, not in 2 years, maybe five, maybe when they're 25, 26, and they're on some campus, excuse me, and they happen to see something, some paraphernalia or whatever, and they be like, wait a second, that dude, there was some brother that, well, I remember him saying something to me about this. And that totally changes the trajectory of their lives. I'm comfortable with that. Um,
Germination of
yeah.
that seed that you planted.
Say that again.
I said that's the germination of the seed that you planted.
Yeah. And I'm comfortable once again not being there. So, but then sticking to the question, I have entertained women that I knew would not marry on to this way of life. So then, in my own weakness and foolishness, I narrow myself. I made myself smaller. I didn't say certain things. I, oh yeah, I will go ahead and pray. I will hold your hand while we do this. I don't pray. My mind, I meditate, but that's not something that I daily practice. I do meditation, but I don't sit there as though speaking out to something outside of me, because then I don't actually have to voice the words. As some people, I kind of did like Professor Griff would say, we're God having a human experience.
Yeah.
And um, and due to that, I went through a lot. I've went through a lot of hell that I caused for myself.
Yourself.
I don't blame them, though. Once again, great women, but I have to stand on my fundamentals and realize we're fundamentally incompatible. We're mature adults. And you know what? It's something I learned during my marriage. Mature adults can last for a good time, a good while, especially when one of them compromises their value system, in the sense of there are things I probably would have said something about, but I didn't because I didn't want to rock the boat. So
So I
then,
have a
go
question
ahead.
then. So did you make those compromises? We can even include in the marriage and with the ladies that you were recently in partnership with. Did you make it out of a fear of rejection, loneliness, confusion, abandonment, or
Um, Fear, false expectations appearing real. When you have knowledge of self, you're not lonely.
Mhm,
And realizing that, I had to learn that. I'm so entertained by my own space. I'm a person, and I think I might have said to you all in private. I have a social meter that I realized I didn't have. I used to think I could be out and about, but I'm really not like that. I mean, like I can, like you invite me out and, oh yeah, hey, let's get together. But then I get to a certain point where I need to actually be to myself. And I'm very comfortable with it. Whereas some people, and I observed them, people I was dealing with in as you say, in partnership with, they like to be out and about, as what they say now, out in the streets
mhm.
regularly. And that's not my thing. I'm
So
comfortable with you. Go ahead. Yeah, go
no,
ahead,
no,
please.
no. Okay. So I don't know if you were about to say it and I just interrupted you. I am off script, by the way, ladies, but I'm gonna rein it in. I'm gonna come back, I promise.
No, you good. Keep going.
Okay. So with you having a lower social battery, I think the ladies can attest, actually we all are kind of like that as well. I think that's part of growth in spirituality and growth in learning self. You can only be out with the uninitiated, quote, air quotes, for so long before you have to recharge your battery. So, with that, and being with a partner who might be more outgoing and more socially open, would you feel in your belief system that that's okay and that she can sometimes have that out there and then you guys can come back together, or do you need to not always be together, but have to do those social things always in concert? Is it okay for her to go do her own thing and then come back um, with you? Do you
Short
understand the
answer,
question?
yeah, it's an excellent question.
Okay.
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
The little longer way to write that same equation, I'll go to in my culture, we had a solar facts where we discuss the distances of all 9 planets in regards to, in reference to the sun. We know that there's 93 million miles. The Earth is 93 million miles away from the sun in between that distance, which tells you there has to be some level of space for there to be balance. Now, taking it through the mathematics, oh, that's born in understanding. 9 is born, 3 is understanding. Going through those ciphers, those other zeros. And those ciphers will represent different aspects of our lives, different worlds we go into. You go out with your friends, I might go out with my brothers, my physical family, you might go out with your physical family, we might come together with our families, our children, that's a different cipher. But to really be able to born a clear and proper understanding of each other, we can't be Mercury and the sun. Because look at Mercury, look at the characteristic of Mercury. It's extremely hot on one side, and it's extremely cold on the other that's not getting the sunlight. But the Earth gets a proper balance because as it rotates, excuse me, pardon the allergies and all that, as it rotates on its axis at a terrific speed of 1,037 one-third miles per hour. See, that's that 5% of speed right there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it's actual fact that there's layers to you as a woman that I have to allow that to be expressed. I cannot build a prison house for you. And to your point, yes, there was some, you could say it was a fear. I was building a prison house for myself. I was allowing a prison house to be built for myself because even in socializing, it full transparency, even like the previous relationship I just got out of, there was limits. That's why I wasn't like catching up with you all as much because there could be this thing of, oh, why are you going around those women?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've been knowing y'all darn this since we were coming out of puberty, but everything is real. I get it. However, one of the tough things for me is if you don't know about my culture and the best of my culture, you won't get that I have a certain discipline not to do shit. I saw this, and I know we got to get through the questions. I had shared. I said it was a video about fasting, and I said so. And think about this because it was by Minister Farrakhan, and talking about if you could restrict yourself on that, that means you can restrict yourself when it comes to sex. You can
Mm-hmm.
restrict yourself when it comes to drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And I said, imagine thinking somebody who fasted for 40 days and 40 nights will easily fall victim to the wiles of a woman. It's not going to happen. Because if I was able to restrict myself from solid food for 40 days,
Mm-hmm.
I think I could resist somebody for one night to respect my relationship. And that's the agreement that we have. So, um, yeah, that's a tough thing because they are, and I get it from their perspective, they're comparing you to the rest of the field, but the rest of the field doesn't think the way I do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
Does that
like
answer
that
your
you
question?
touched on that. It answered it, and then it brought up something else. I'm not going to get into that right now because that's truly a rabbit hole. Like, well, I'll get a little bit. This may be a two-parter, but we'll see. Um, the intercourse thing and the intimacy, you have to, from my belief set, you can't give your body to everybody. You have to be very careful, especially as a woman who you allow into your sacred portal. So that's really cool. I like the way you guys think about that. I never thought about it as far as fasting. If you can resist food, you can resist sexual intimacy. I
Think
never thought
about
about that.
Think about the carnal desires of a human being: food, rest, or as many say, sleep, reproduction, well, or planned reproduction, playing with the
That's a good
reproductive
one.
system.
Yeah.
Like those are things technically at some point in your maturation, you're going to crave to do it if you don't control it.
Okay.
I mean, that's a perspective. Yeah.
No, no, I
That's what I
like
think
that.
from a
Hmm.
natural standpoint.
Okay, well, you actually answered all of my marriage, dating, and divorce questions. So we will move on to career and legacy. And to be honest, you answered a lot of that too. Um, so
That's see where you talk a lot.
no, 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 it's good. I like that because it's more it flows. It doesn't seem like we're doing a check. Oh, you don't see my phone. It doesn't seem like we're doing the checklist. But I do have a checklist question. Okay, so how do you stay true to your purpose while navigating systems that don't always reflect your values? This is in the career
Yeah.
path.
In my studies, there it's kind of like you said earlier, there's multiple ways, multiple paths to the same thing. And me, in our lessons, in the top right corner, it says, "In the name of Allah, Lord of all worlds." And one of the ways I've interpreted that phrase is being able to speak multiple psychological languages, not ethnic languages necessarily, even though yo hablo un poquito español, but being able to speak to people from different backgrounds. So I'm able to express and having such a mastery of my language as a five percenter, being able to use their language to express the same ideologies. That's something I had to learn because I couldn't just come out and say, do the knowledge. Oh, don't cut my wisdom.
Hmm.
Like, hey, wait, let's slow down. Let's think this out. Let's define this terminology first. That's even something that I integrated in how I teach my class. When terms come up, let me bring up another screen. Let's define it. So why do I do that? So then we're all on a level playing field of comprehension. Because sometimes you could be literally saying the same thing, but because you're using two different terms, the conflict and confusion still arises because then ego plays this part of no, I'm right, no, I'm right, da da da.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you've developed the skill of code switching so that you can be inclusive.
yes,
Boom,
Yeah,
yep,
boom.
I
excellent label for that.
'cause-
Yeah. There's something with relationship. Can I add on one thing about relationships,
your
if I may?
platform today. You
Thank,
yes,
and thank
yeah.
you once again for having me. I know y'all gonna be like, "Ooh, okay, we gotta cut him
No, it's
down. We
fine.
have to
It's
edit the hell
fine.
out." But something I wanted to touch on that I've experienced more times than I probably wanted to, dealing with and navigating separation, divorce, like that. I know we discussed about divorce, but actually the mindset within the divorce or breaking up with somebody, and how do you navigate that, getting over like, damn, this didn't work out. And then the layers that we mentally add on to that, that sometimes we really shouldn't because we blame ourselves so much for things. Um, One of the things I would tell anybody is take time to go into yourself. Take time to fuck yourself. Love yourself. Because when you realize you have to make yourself feel good, and I'm not just talking about like physically, because I know this is that we are totally raw here, playing with yourself but mental masturbation
Hmm.
for yourself. So once again, because you cannot love me more than I love myself. Because you should not know more about me than I know about myself. But many times I think people make the mistake, and here's the thing about the emotion of wanting companionship overriding the logic of compatibility, you say, damn, oh, I haven't done anything in 3 months or 4 or 5, 6, whatever, years, as some people would say. Uh, Not allowing that to cause you to make a poor decision. Or even if you're going to go do something, being fully engaged and engrossed in the decision, not frivolous, but doing it with intention and fidelity. And what I mean by that is being truthful with yourself
Mm-hmm.
and with that person you're interacting with,
Mm-hmm.
so we know where we stand. There, I'm gonna tell you all this, and I'll wrap here with it. Pardon yourself. There's such a freedom in not lying,
What line?
in the sense of,
Freedom
100%.
in
like
not
I said,
lying.
Oh,
lying,
not
Yeah,
okay.
not
not
lying.
lying. It's
I
freedom
thought you
in
said in
not
line. I was
lying.
like, what? Okay.
Oh, pardon yourself. So it's a freedom in it. And I say that to
Yes.
say, I could proudly say I have not lied to another woman since I've been divorced, since I've separated, or years before we separated, actually,
Yeah.
because my maturation and growth started before we separated houses. You know, even she would say at one time, I see your change. It just was too far gone
Mm.
to turn back. Um, but be to yourself. Be comfortable with being to yourself because sometimes there are other people that are dealing with something where they need to constantly be. And this goes back to the thing of people having their space. Because people will say, oh, I don't need to. I'm not clingy, da 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 da. But once certain things come in the mix, now it's, why didn't you call me? Da-da. And it's
I have a
constantly,
caveat kind of to that, and you
go ahead.
touched upon it. So I'm gonna back up. When you said date yourself, know yourself, love yourself, if you don't love yourself, you cannot be properly loved. Like if I don't know who I am, what makes me happy, what brings me joy, and that joy and happiness cannot be found within me, that means I'm looking for it in someone else. They don't have the power to bring it to me. So I'm always going to be searching. I'm never going to be complete. And if I'm not complete, I cannot completely give. So it's always going to be two people searching for something that neither has the power to give because I don't know who I am. So I definitely agree to what you said with that. And then you said also the power in not lying. That sets your parameter. That sets it's your platform, it's your base. So you go into something and you say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, this is what I can give and what I can't give. Are you okay with it? So no one's confused. So I definitely agree with that. I like the way you said that. Let me see. Did I wrap it up? Ladies, did I miss anything?
Talking about when you were saying that, about your divorce and about, well, about divorce, not particularly yours, but it was just something that you were saying about divorce and the end of a relationship, and how, why this happened, and the mistakes you made or anything like that. Most people will call that, and I'll say most people, and speaking to my female side, we call it closure. We always seek closure in some type of relationships, in some aspects, if that's self reflection, or if that's even talking to the partner and saying, hey, I need an exit ticket for this. I don't know what exactly happened, but hey, if even if the person is open to that, but we always, as individuals, if we do have some self knowledge, a knowledge of self, as you just spoke of, many times, then we do want that closure so that we can learn from what happened in those relationships or partnerships that we had in the past.
Oh, okay. I see that different.
Until that, I'm gonna tell you this. I think people need to be more mindful and cognizant of when we talk about. We've been hearing closure. You know, we always hear that the TV shows
Mm-hmm. Yes.
closure, the Dear John letters, and all that. I say if you're truly in tune with what's going on and being realistic, not just what's palatable to your emotions, but being realistic and seeing things the way they truly are and not as you want them to be, the closure is seen in their actions, not them verbally having to tell you, oh, this is why it doesn't work or this. And then once again, you have to evaluate yourself in a fair light. Even I've learned this. Sometimes I've had to go to somebody who's not emotionally attached to the situation and share with them unbiasedly what occurred. Your part too. Because a lot of times, most times when people separate, you are the villain. You're going to be the villain. I had to learn to accept that, even though I might have been not necessarily a hero, but I wasn't necessarily the destructor either. Go to them and to get that wise feedback of them saying, well, you might have wanted to approach it this way and being receptive to that. So I think for me personally, I don't need somebody to necessarily tell. I'm at this point in my life. I don't need somebody to tell me necessarily the five W's of why we ended. I could literally see, or I could see by your ways and actions, we needed to. Or usually, think about this. And I remember this lady said this to me when I was way younger. Usually, there are signs to all of that. It's just a matter if you want to pay attention.
That's very true.
Now, why do you disagree with it, Jolanda?
You said it. Um,
Um,
You said I knew that's the reason why I was
yeah, I
trying to see
don't,
what she was saying.
but
Yeah.
that's a personal thing. I'm not a
Yes.
closure person. Everyone doesn't come into your life forever. Sometimes it's just for a season. You learn
Very
from
true.
that season and you move
Move
on.
on. Yeah.
But again, that's an individual belief set.
So
Okay, go ahead, Carmen. You had to sew. Go ahead.
so we've reached the reflection part of our
No, we haven't. No, we haven't. I have a really good question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. So, with still career, what legacy are you building, not just as a man or a father, but as a God?
That's the reflection question. Well, go ahead.
yeah. Well, she said we weren't done with the reflection yet.
No, I didn't. I said I wasn't done with questions. Carmen did say, in fairness,
Wait,
she
so this
did
is
say,
okay. Never mind. Let me stay out y'all.
It's
Okay.
good, but that's the
she
question.
did
Go
say it
ahead.
that way.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay.
Go
Mhm.
ahead.
So the legacy that I want to build as a God is striving that people would say he really strived to bring that out of whoever was around him. Even if they I tell anybody I teach that actually comes to me for to be taught by me, the 5% don't have a monopoly on knowledge of self. There are multiple paths to it. I just might not be the person who's qualified to teach you the different paths necessary. I might even give you some tools for the other path because I respect that there are numerous ways you could get to it. My goal is just to help you get to it, not the car you choose to drive or the path that you choose to walk, but that you get to it. That maybe I see you 5 years later, a month later, 2 years later, or whatever, and we happen to cross paths, and you say, "Thanks, I figured it out." That's um, and that I facilitated environments for people to flourish, being who they are in a righteous way.
Okay, well, thank you. So, Carmen did the intro to this, so it's only fair that she wrap up and do the exit. So,
Okay.
Carmen.
Before I wrap it all up for you, is there anything else you would like to ask Jolanda, Olivia, or myself? It could be anything.
Um, I don't know if I have a question off the top of my head, but I know a statement that came to mind.
Go right ahead.
Um, in watching the previous episodes, I did not realize how much I didn't know about you all, as far as the trials and tribulations and things that you have been dealing with. Um, and like I said in our chat, I really look at this because to me, y'all had the experience to substantiate your maturity, but you've always had the maturity to do what you're doing right now. Like, it's like, Carmen, when I hear your voice and all of your voices, this certainty, this, uh, dare I say, majesticness, it never has been childlike with you all. It's always been this maturity. And I think I've been saying this probably since know this, like you being one of the first younger people in a serious relationship that I saw in
Mm.
my own eyes. Um, but yeah, as a credit to you all, uh, definitely watching. They need to keep watching. I keep watching, catching up on the episodes. I think the next one is dealing with spirituality.
Mhm.
Um,
That's the one you really need to watch. Then you will understand us even more once you watch that one.
it's kind of like as I listen and all three of you all have said things that was like, okay, damn, it's like, okay, we are all in sync. And yeah, it's beautiful in a sense because strip all the labels away. Just being on the same frequency is so important. I think especially at this point in time in our lives, at this point in time in the world, where there's so many polarizing um, dynamics going on. Being in a good, it's like I love how Jolanda put it. She says that social media because when you're around those that are of the uninitiated, you like, oh, okay. I don't been to this party. I've listened to enough ratchet music. I've,
I'm done.
I'm
I'm done.
done.
I'm done.
Please let me go back home and turn on PBS and
Let me
my
get my peace.
jazz.
Let me get my peace.
And I say that jokingly, but yeah, that calm because we have to constantly recenter ourselves. But yeah, that's I do have one question. How was it? How was it dealing with me coming back not being Bobby? And like the perception, what I mean, like you think about this. We've all talked, y'all teased me about this. You were around and you disappeared.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would think by the time that we started connecting, even in the 20s, I think we connected somewhat in our 20s. I
Back on
had
again.
started going through in this change and like, oh yeah, I go by power now.
Mm.
And even up to right now, how is that? Um, how do you see that? I don't even know necessarily the best word to articulate it. But how have you had to adjust or felt you had to adapt or did you feel like you couldn't say certain things or whatever?
So I'll start. Um, I remember us having that conversation in the kitchen at Joseph's house, and we talked for a long time while we were there. And one thing that I was able to truly identify is your, I'm going to say spiritual growth, it's your culture, but I saw that growth in you. And for me, it made it so much more powerful in our friendship because I saw that this, and I'm not trying to disrespect you, but in my head, I saw Big Booty Bobby
It is.
standing there, and I'm like, oh my God, what
Which one of
he
us is gonna
he
say?
and I had to say,
Get
this
out of
is
here
not the
unscathed.
same, and I can say child because we were children then.
Yes.
Child, and now he's this man. And like that that conversation that me and you had, like I could be vulnerable with you. I was able to say things to you that between me and you. And it was so like just wonderful to see that you have so much knowledge, like you said, of self that no matter what we go through, we can come back and be friends, but at a different level. It wasn't the same level where we're just he and all that stuff. And like you said, going to the club, listen to the ratchet music, but we could actually sit and talk. like at game night, we could sit and actually talk and have conversations and understand that no matter what we all believe, we all can come together and say, I agree to disagree with you, or I will take that under advisement. So that is what I thought.
Thank you. Appreciate
For
that.
me, is that we underlined, all of us,
Mm.
the basement crew, we have a connection that is unique. And even though we could be gone from each other for, years and everything like that, the connection has never left. So for me, it was your commitment to who you were. So I can always, with being committed to becoming the man that you are, saying, I'm no longer Robert Rudd, I am Power Born, made me respect that and want to continue to respect that in the light of everyone. So it was easy because you made it easy with your commitment to it. You didn't make it, you weren't militant about it. You were very steadfast in it. So that made it easy to just be like, okay, he's not, I'm not gonna say it again, she already said it. He's not that
Oh,
anymore. He's not
That's
that
why I work
anymore.
on getting this weight back off of me. I tell you. Goodness.
Please don't lose that. I'm gonna let you know because that's gonna attract your queen. Um,
what you did. Oh, Lord.
I need
but
that. Sorry.
but it's that steadfastness that was easy because I
We
have,
connected before we all.
yeah, we
We
did.
right.
Exactly, and that's what made me say, when you didn't meet, you know, Carmen back in the day when we reconnected. You met this Carmen. You met the mature Carmen. You met the Carmen that's been married for up to years and had two kids. That's different from the Carmen that you knew then. You
Mm.
respected that Carmen, right?
Yeah.
And I respected that.
Yes.
I respected that power. When you told
Yeah.
me what your name was and why, I respected that.
Yes. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Mm,
Okay. So I'm gonna say ditto, but my little caveat is I was also gone. Like I left the friend group at 23 and I was gone. I was having children. I was in a different state. I was totally separate from everyone. So when you kind of did resurface, I heard about it. So I knew you changed your name because Carmen told me you changed your name. And I still wasn't back. And so through more so Carmen than Olivia, I'm hearing things. So I'm like, oh, okay, so this is what he's doing now. Oh, that's cool. Oh, okay, that's cool. I hadn't started my spiritual path yet. So it was like, oh, that's cool. That's nice. All
Yeah.
right, I could see that. That makes sense. Okay, that's the person. Okay. So it wasn't a surprise. So then to come back into the fold and speak to you, it was just like, oh, like Carmen said, I get it. It was easy. It made sense. It wasn't like you're a different person. You're still the same person. And I told that to Olivia.
yeah,
We had a conversation, the two of us about it. I still see you guys as it's hard for me to understand that we're like, we have grown children. I still see you as Bobby. I still see Joseph with his black cowboy hat on. I still see Joey with the high top fade. I still see Carmen with her short, cute haircut. I still see Olivia with the big, long hair. Like when I see you guys, I'm stuck because that's when I fell in love with you guys. So that's what I see. And so it's still cool to be able to talk and sit down and have one-on-one adult conversations, but I can still be vulnerable, as Olivia said, and I can still be goofy and act like a kid
yeah,
because you can't do that. It's very rare to have a friendship amongst six adults. Is it six? Seven, excuse me. And I forgot Johannes. I saw him when we were in top teens. He would be running, holding his pants because he would always make his pants so big. So to have seven adults, we all went our separate ways, male and female. We had lives, we had husbands, wives, significant others, marriages, divorce, death of children. We've all raised successful kids, the ones that are still here. Um, it's a testament to who we are as people And it makes sense that we all came back together and we all have different belief sets, but we're all really strong in those beliefs, but accepting of each other's beliefs. We can sit in a room and have an open conversation where we may have six different belief sets, and five, four, it doesn't matter, and we can accept each other and hear each other out. There's no judgment, there's no anger. As Olivia said, sometimes it's just, you know what, I don't think like that, but it's okay. Still love you. You have a
And
safe
it sounds
space.
all kumbaya, but
No.
in in reality, we are actually the change that we would love to see in the world.
Mm.
Because you think about it, we do have some wide-ranging perspectives in our just in our social group. So, but thank you for that. And one of the reasons I asked that is because to be straight up, as this came about, as I grew into this, being power, like I even had family members I could tell were hesitant even though I was open as a book, but they were even hesitant to approach me at family gatherings, um, which for some time I did keep myself from because I was so militant about it. Like, oh, I don't deal with no religious holidays, da da da. But I had to learn better. I had to grow and all that. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I asked. I wondered if there was any hesitance in like, oh, I heard this about them, or this, that, or third. So.
No hesitation
But
because you were always our friend. You were always our brother. So there was no hesitation in there.
and that's what I was gonna say. Like we talked because Joey asked us the same question as far as like how does his career, how did that affect us knowing him? And I'm gonna say the same thing to you as I said to him is the fact that we loved you from the beginning. So no matter what and what you did, we had love. And for me, I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but for me, if I love you and I care about you, I don't care what happens. As long as we can talk about it, I'm still gonna love you regardless.
Yeah.
So
Man.
Well, on that note, now you know. We love you, and there is
we love
nothing
you.
that you can do about it.
Y'all are
Thank you
stuck with me. I
again.
love y'all more.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Beyond the First Chapter. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.